Great. So everyone is here and excited to start this session. This is the third edition of Fast Forward. We launched Fast Forward at the peak of the national lockdown in 2020. And here we are, 8 investments and three editions, and super excited to be here on our first AMA with all of you. We'll come to introductions, and each of us have a particular section to take over in the deck. And like I mentioned, we'll take you through why we launched it, the key tenets, application tips and tricks, the big sector themes that we're currently seeing with the over 400 applications already received for this year's edition. We'll cover some of the portfolio winners from Fast Forward and finally open this up for an AMA. Thank you once again for joining us, and let's get started. Very quickly about who we are and about WaterBridge. WaterBridge is $250 million in AUM, or assets under management, the typical way in which VC firms are classified. We were set up in 2016. We have 2 offices, Delhi and Bangalore, and we've made over 27 investments, and we've put out some of the prominent logos that you could see here on the right-hand side. We have a founding family of over 60 founders, and we typically like being the first institutional VC on the cap table. And we like to lead all our rounds. And we sign anywhere from a $250K to $500K seed check, all the way up to a $2.5 million pre-Series A, Series A check. We like founders with high opportunity costs. We like large, deep markets. And we are tech first. And what that means is, while we're overall sector agnostic, we do like founding teams with tech co-founders. And we like to have technology be your significant competitive moat. We have backed companies like Atlin, that's a global SaaS company, City Mall, we did in 2020, that's rural last mile grocery deliveries. Business is a B2 small B, as we call it, which is business to SME or mid-market businesses. They are digitizing India's factories. And of course, I'm sure all of you are very familiar with Unacademy, Magic Pin, Shallow, and Doubtnut. That are some of our early emerging winners from Fund 1. Why Fast Forward? I think Fast Forward, as I mentioned, was launched first in the peak of the national lockdown in 2020. We simply thought that seed needs speed. That's like our one-line mission and vision statement, and to democratize access to decision makers at VC firms and remove the opaqueness involved with cold emails, with struggling to find a warm intro, and actually getting to pitch to VCs. I think the pandemic has helped this in many ways, in a fact that what previously used to be a trip to Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore for founders can now be done over Zoom and video calls. And it has enabled, a program like this enables founders to directly reach investment teams and VC firms in the shortest possible time frame. What that means is to make the process transparent. We call for applications through a fully online process. We promise you a yes or no decision within 7 days, 7 business days. So please bear with us. And if we like what we're seeing, what we're reading, we invite you for a Zoom pitch directly with our investment team. That is one of the 4 of us that you see on Zoom today. We already have published our term sheet or key terms of investment on the Fast Forward website. And this is as easy and as simple as it gets. But the core tenet of Fast Forward is bring speed to seed, enable the best founders to reach VCs at the fastest possible time. And after that, to make the decision-making as transparent and quick as possible. So what's the process? It's as simple as 1, 2, 3, just fill out an application form. Naman from our team will later on in this presentation take you through some tips and tricks and what will help you stand out. We have a 41-page questionnaire. It's entirely online, 41-question questionnaire, sorry, definitely not pages. Some of these are multiple choice, very straightforward, yes, no questions. For example, which year were you incorporated? Or how many employees does your company have? Or what sector do you belong? Very basic drop-down questions, yes, no questions. And then we have a second set, which is basically long-form, open-ended questions. Those are the ones that we'd like to focus on today. And Naman would be happy towards the end of this presentation to take you through some of what could make you stand out while answering those questions. We have a 7-day yes-no investment tag or turnaround time. What we mean is if you send us an application today, in 7 days, we aim to get back to you with meaningful feedback, whether we liked what we read and whether we'd like to invite you for a Zoom pitch or not. Many of you would recognize and realize that you would indeed be early in your journey. You're probably just an idea, still in college, say yet to quit your jobs. And in many of those cases, we do leave you with feedback saying we'd like to see an MVP or we'd like to for you to hit a few milestones, but definitely would love to keep in touch and touch base with the WaterBridge team a few months down the line. But we're very forthright and it's a flat yes or no. And if it's a yes, we directly invite you to pitch with one of us. I think the $1 million question really is how do we decide so quickly? And because we realized that it's not a 2-minute straightforward answer to this one, we've actually published an entire blog. So I'd encourage you to either go to my LinkedIn and read up a LinkedIn blog or head to the WaterBridge websites to our insights section and read a long form article we've written on how did we come up with this pattern or a method to this madness of evaluating over 500-600 seed pitch decks in such a compressed time frame. As we all know, at the early stage, we don't invest in businesses, we invest in people. And I think it's like really building a muscle. And having been in the early stage investing ecosystem for over 6 years now, seen literally 2,000-3,000 deals and invested and backed over 60 founders, we'd like to believe that as we crystal ball gaze and seek diamonds in the rough, we strongly believe that we'll only invest in companies that we can lend a high value add approach. What we mean by that is we only invest in businesses that we think that we as WaterBridge and being the first and the lead institutional investor, that we can add value to your board, we can add value to your business, we can connect you to your first customer, your first vendor, help you hire your first employee, help you achieve PMF, fine tune your GTM strategy. But we are involved investors because we take this lead position and we like, and since we have a small curated approach, we don't do 20-30 deals a year. We typically only do 5 to 6. And in each of those, we make sure that we're together with our founders right from the very start and trying to be as useful and involved as possible. I spoke about technology earlier as being a key moat. So therefore, as we look through the application, we do try and see the role of tech in both enabling scale or driving efficiencies in your business model, as well as the strength of tech co-founders in your founding team. We'll cover this later on. We go sector by sector. And if some of you here have already filled out our application form, you would have noticed that we have put out 6 sector boxes. And later in this presentation, we'll quickly go through what's the sector mix that we're already seeing this year in in 22, as well as some of the themes that we're bullish on and excited about, and some of the themes that we feel we're seeing too much of and there's already aggressive competition and therefore we're staying away from. So where does the magic happen, as I'd like to call it? I think in early stage, given the heavy dependency on founding teams, and as I said, we invest in people first and then businesses. As a firm, we always put founders ahead of markets. But if you really ask me, I think the magic happens when you have a strong thesis or an opinion or are heavily bullish in a particular market that's deep, large, monetizable, and where there's significant competitive advantage and there are beachhead markets in place. When that really meets the best and the most eclectic founding teams, that's where I guess those are the applications that we try to look for, and those are the diamonds in the rough that we try to mine and invite for a pitch call. With regard to founders, we really like founders who have experience in the sector that they're building for. It could be that you've experienced the problem firsthand. It could be that you've been a tenured professional from that sector, so already bring very strong networks, have experienced that problem from a different viewpoint, have tried to solve it from a different vantage point. Those are the founders that we're highly biased towards. We also like high opportunity cost founders What we mean by that, again, is you could be like a tenured professional, you could be someone who's second time startup. So therefore, founder scalability index needs to be really high, and the ability to really scale and change as a founder from being seed to series A, B, C. I think the challenges at each stage are different. And we like founders, no founder would have seen the entire journey, of course, given where the Indian ecosystem is. But we like founders who have experienced this problem, who have faced this problem, albeit from a different vantage point. I spoke about tech first, so don't want to spend too much time here. We tend to stay away from, say, like hardware-driven businesses or operationally intensive-driven businesses or entirely offline businesses. And you'd have to convince us pretty strongly as to why you're a tech-first company. I'm now going to hand this over to my colleague, Nilesh, who will take us through what's the funnel looking like. Nilesh, over to you.
Thanks, Anjali. Thank you for taking us through those slides. And quick reminder to everyone attending, do drop in your questions in the Q&A section here in the chat window. So we'll try and address those. But as we're kind of going through this presentation, hopefully many of your questions will get answered. And I think one of the things we strive to do on this EMA is try and be as transparent as possible with what the process has been like from our end. And so I think the slide here today and really what the funnel for us looks like is meant to be kind of opening up the curtain to show you really what things have been like on our end. We've launched FastForward in March 2020. We've had a second iteration in April 2021. So we've done this a couple of times, and our experience over those kind of iterations has been that we have about 500 to 600 applications that typically come in. Of that, about 75 to 100 of those kind of progress into calls, and from there we end up doing sometimes no deals and sometimes up to 5 deals. So we have no kind of hard and fast rule that we'll do an X number of deals. I think we view this primarily as an opportunistic lens to kind of figure out if we find the right team in the right space, we'll do as many deals as need be. So really, I think the thesis of the entire FastForward program has been how do we make seed investing easier for both parties, right? For both the founders, especially who kind of go through these long cycles of waiting, and also for the investors to kind of get all the information upfront. So, if you go through our application process, you would see there are a bunch of questions, 41 questions specifically, as Anjali pointed out. And a lot of this is kind of front loading a lot of the information, which will help us get to this really kind of faster, conviction cycle. And one of the things that we take very seriously is, response rate. So I think safe to say over the last 2 iterations, we've had 100% response rate. We've replied to every single application that has come in. I think our goal is to almost always stick to the SLA. Obviously with COVID and all the other kind of headwinds that we face, we're doing our best. Sometimes we may go a day over, a day under. But I think so far we've been able to kind of stick to that response rate and almost always get back with some feedback. I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on is almost always giving non-generic feedback, something very tailor-made to kind of the application. We totally understand that founders have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort really going through the process of applying and kind of giving us all that information up front. So the best way to kind of view this from a process perspective is, maybe the first or second interaction we've had with the VC or with any sort of investors is front-loaded into the application process. From there, there's an evaluation that we do, and given prima facie, it all makes sense from our view of the world. We progress to that call stage where we have a couple of calls back and forth. And then finally, it moves into like a deeper diligence and eventual deal closure. So that's from a process perspective, what it looks like for us. Historically speaking, about 20% of all our pitches have actually gotten to that stage where we have a one-on-one conversation. And as part of the application, actually, there's another element which sometimes founders are hesitant to kind of go through is a YouTube pitch. I think I speak for the rest of the team in saying, the YouTube pitch really humanizes the application a lot, really gives us a bigger head start to understand, again, the people that we're hoping to back in this application process. So would encourage everybody on this AMA and anyone listening to, almost always do your best to try and figure out YouTube if possible. That really gives us the huge advantage and helps us kind of relate to the problem statement and really what you're trying to solve better. So this is what our funnel typically looks like. I think at the end of the funnel, regardless of what WaterBridge's view of the particular deal is, we almost always introduce you to other VC partners. So we try and kind of match other partners within our ecosystem and see if there are other avenues that you can explore fundraising through our partners. And I think that's one of the most exciting features of the WaterBridge FastForward program is not only is it like fast and efficient with your time, but it's also kind of enabling a bit more reach. So this is really what fast forward has looked like for us so far. Now, what I'd like to do is also give you a sense of what the past iterations of, who we've invested in the past. And I think we have 3 case studies which will come up on the next slide. So I think the slide here is just to kind of give you a sense of what our 2 iterations have looked like. BitClass, Iloilo, OneCode, Big Fat Fetus, and Claim Therapists were all from the first iteration of Fast Forward. This is, again, during the first lockdown 1.0, which really feels like a distant memory to many of us, but it was just a couple of years ago. And that was the first time we ran Fast Forward. I think they've all scaled up, and BitClass, Iloilo, and OneCode in particular has gone on to kind of raise additional rounds of funding and has really evolved into like an interesting part of our portfolio. And this brings me to an interesting point on Fast Forward in general. I think as an investment program, one of the biggest features that I'm really excited about is, this is an investing program. It's not really like an accelerator incubator here. Once you're kind of funded through Fast Forward, you're part of the larger portfolio and you get all the value add that you can expect from WaterBridge as a fund. And I think that's played out really well in multiple kind of portfolio companies from Fast Forward 1 and as well now from Fast Forward 2. So the 3 companies that we've kind of invested into from Fast Forward to Downtown Club, Curious Junior, and Yellow Metal as listed on these slides. And happy to jump into a little bit about each, but what we actually found interesting about all these all the startups we've backed in the past has been really strong founder journeys, really strong founder market fit. And if I could go as far as to say what kind of differentiation our evaluation lens brings to the table as far as Fast Forward is concerned, we really spend a lot of time understanding the humans behind the story. We also have a podcast series that's come out kind of chronicling what this journey looks like. What are the humans behind the stories, what have been kind of the forces that have led them to kind of starting up. And we take that seriously. Obviously there's always an opportunity cost. There's always other things that you can do with your time. So at Fast Forward, we're almost eager to learn about the people as we are the businesses. But happy to jump into a bit about the businesses. I think I'm happy to talk about Curious Junior, and then we'll recruit some of my colleagues to talk about OneCode and Iloilo. So Curious Junior, just to give you a sense, is our bet in the edtech space. Really, this is coding for kids. And as we all know, education has been a very exciting space in the last couple of years. And over the last, I want to say maybe 5-7 years, coding has come to the front as really the new math. Is really the way that I think of it, is that one subject that everybody's excited to learn and everyone kind of gauges your capability level has become coding. Curious Junior is a very interesting company because it's actually innovated product innovation to teach kids coding. But on the mobile UX, as many of us can appreciate, not everyone has access to a desktop, and many of the players outside and in the space today are all kind of desktop based. Curious Junior is kind of pioneering a way for kids to learn how to code on the phone. So almost everyone has access to a phone today. And this is really democratizing the idea of learning coding so that when you get to college, when you get to kind of your undergrad stage, you really have a good head start to make sure you hit the ground running. So Curious Junior was a great kind of mix in terms of, on the product side, it was a super innovative product. We really enjoyed the space that it was in and really what it was empowering for tier 2, 3, 4 kind of students. I think on the distribution end, we are very, very excited about the team. So Amit, Mridul, and Ali bring together, who are the founders of Curious Junior, bring together really strong growth hacking and distribution skills. So looking at those two put together, it really was one of those bets. We're very excited to figure out, how we can empower the next generation of students. So that's our bet on Curious Junior. With that, we'll ask Naman to kind of take it forward on OneCode.
Hey, thanks, Anish. So OneCode is typically a network of direct agents and for direct agents who are called OneCoders. And OneCoders typically sell financial products for digital first brands like Upstock, Jupiter, Equitas, etc. So this was again one of its kind where people have heard of Misho reselling tangible products, but there was no platform who was selling at least those products which need some hand-holding or some personal education or at least trust from the ends of the buyer. So for example, the highest selling products on OneCode today are Demat account opening or credit card opening, where generally it is pitched to or sold to Bharat focused audience, tier 2, tier 3, etc. So OneCoder is anyone who wants to earn extra income and is eager, so registers on the platform and can only sell products after it gone under rigorous training, which is defined per individual product. So OneCode has been able to. So OneCode raised from FastForward to 2020 and raised 500K from WaterBridge Ventures, and went on to last year raise 5 million from Sequoia, Surge, and Nexus. And also you might hear of a next round, pretty big round pretty soon. And traction wise, now they have 30,000 unique agents who are already earning from this platform as of last month. And OneCode was also rated #1 app for work and online work categories on App Store and Google Play. It's growing at more than 30% month-on-month growth, and soon entering into other product categories like insurance, personal loan, etc. So starting with financial product, it's gonna be massive wherever any product which requires some hand holding and personal touch. I think OneCode is the platform. I'll hand it over to Faz to introduce Elo to you guys.
Faz, are you unable to unmute? Faz, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? My video is still off, but if you can hear me.
No worries. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. All right, great. So thanks, Naman. Similar to OneCode, actually, LOLO was another bet we made in FastForward 2020, which was the first edition. If you haven't used the app or heard of it, LOL was basically an app that enables live social experiences through games and entertainment. So at any point, you can log into the app, watch and participate in fun, family-friendly, interactive games and entertainment. It's all about live, interactive entertainment at all times. So basically, you can log in the afternoon, watch a cooking show. You can log in the evening, play some games with the family. And the app has managed to create a really strong community of creators and users, which was the main reason we actually backed the founders back in 2020. So the founding team, Saurabh and Akshay, were actually both ex-Flipkart people who came to us in 2020 and had a lot of passion for the creator economy. So we decided to back them in the first edition of FastForward. And since then, they've gone on to raise another round of funding with investors such as Lumikai and Better Capital as well. And since then, they've been on quite a journey. They're currently in the top 10 apps of the Play Store. And I think over 2.5 million downloads in the last year alone. So yeah, that's a little bit about LOLO and the rest of our portfolio. We can now move on to discussing our process of evaluation and feedback, and also our sector preferences. So yeah, as the slide says, humans behind the emails, I think Dipendu had asked it in the chat earlier, and we'd addressed it earlier as well. So these aren't we try to not give generic feedback. Every single response that you get is not automated. Every response is from one of us in the investment team. So either Nilesh, Naman, myself, Anjali is writing to you directly. And we try to give detailed feedback just to give you some insight into our thought process. So whether it's the product, the GTM, the sector, whatever it is, we try to give you an understanding of what's working for us, what's not, whether we think the founder market fit is there, whether we think the product is too early, the space is too nascent, the market's not deep enough. We just try and give you some specific feedback to give you an understanding of the reason behind our decision, whether it's a yes or a no. And yeah, we do have very strong sector preferences. So we've basically classified 6 main sectors, and every single application that hits the FastForward inbox will basically get allocated to one of us based on these sectors. So for example, consumer and B2B for SMBs will come to me. Nilesh will take everything global SaaS and EdTech. Naman will take health, FinTech, and others will usually just get split. So we've been seeing a lot of consumer stuff. So I can give you a little brief about what I've been seeing in consumer, and also what spaces appeal to us, what doesn't really. So in general, we've been seeing a lot of e-commerce, a lot of dating apps. There's like a resurgence of travel tech and hospitality platforms that we've been seeing. A lot of EV companies actually, which is a space we're not super keen on, because we tend to, with most EV platforms and most EV companies, it just tends to be very capital intensive with very few real differentiators. So EV is not something we're super keen on, but we're seeing a lot of it personally. And there's some spaces that we're quite keen on. We're seeing a lot of gaming, which is an exciting sector, and even social commerce. So keen to see more of those and see if something else exciting comes out of those sectors. Other spaces that we're particularly bullish about and keeping an eye out for, I'd say non-educational kid tech. So games, interactive entertainment for kids, that's something that we're keenly looking out for. Even pet care, pet nutrition, that's a space we've looked at in the past. And it's definitely something that we're hoping to see more of this time around as well. Moving on to B2B, we've been seeing a lot of supply chain enablement, so B2B marketplaces, and also quite a bit of agri-tech, so farmer to wholesaler commerce. Actually, a lot of the agri supply chain platforms are quite hard to differentiate for us because there's just nothing that really stands out as a differentiator. There's a lot of repeats in the business model, nothing super unique yet, but hopefully soon. It's definitely an interesting space. And in general, not just B2B, but all of us at WaterBridge are quite bullish about the Bharat market opportunity. So we're always on the lookout for companies that are going after these large, deep markets in tier 2, tier 3 cities. This is a pretty broad theme across sectors, and this can be seen in our portfolio as well. So yeah, that's just generally what we've been seeing in consumer and B2B. I'll let Nilesh go next and talk about the other end of the spectrum with global SaaS and what we've been seeing there.
Yeah, happy to talk about EdTech and global SaaS. And just a quick clarification, I think there was already a question on B2B versus global SaaS. Just a quick delineation there. I think global SaaS is typically in our minds what we think of as build in India for the world. So really, these are like SaaS businesses that are able to kind of build products in India and then sell abroad. I think B2B is the larger umbrella that may kind of encapsulate things like selling to other businesses in India, selling to manufacturers, warehouses, for example. So anything in the B2B space that is kind of tailor-made for India tends to fall within the B2B bucket. And maybe you could have made that more clearer on the slide and note for us to maybe improve on next time. But global SaaS really, and my perspective on this has been, again, products that are built in India with a really strong tech team and really product focus, not really the services focus, but rather product solutions that are kind of built to global problems. I think here there are two vectors which are interesting. There's obviously the product side and the distribution side. I think the exciting thing about a global market is that the market is unbound. You can literally, like so many, Freshworks is probably the best example of this. And you can build something in India for the world and take it to like the largest of customers and really do a fantastic job if you crack those two elements, right? So I think on the global SaaS vertical, really what things that I'll start with what excites me. I think there's obviously product, really truly world-class product, which is able to kind of stand up to, any competitors out in the Valley or anywhere in Israel or China. I think that's it goes without saying that there's a very high bar for the product solution itself. But really, I think where a lot we index on is really on the distribution side. So being able to kind of make those sales from India to the US is sometimes non-trivial. I think some early evidence of at least being able to do the sales from India, I think that's usually quite helpful from an application perspective. So no one's asking for 2-3 million in ARR, but just showing some initial traction, showing some kind of initial pilots, and typically works well with customers who we've never met before. They try a product. A freemium model tends to be quite popular. They try the freemium model. They kind of do a few runs, and then after that, kind of grow within the firm. So I think early evidence of traction is vital in global SaaS, given the vast nature and the larger opportunities and larger competitive set. I think things that have actually come through already on global SaaS really have been toolkits to help people. Low code, no code platform, for example, I think has been one of the more popular business models that have come through. And undoubtedly, we have business users around the world who want to kind of leverage a toolkit and not depend on technical resources to start coding in the world. So I think here, what we'd like to really see is a way for those, and the more you kind of look at it, the more it seems like the product is less of the piece of the puzzle here, but really the distribution side. So how do you get a really truly world-class product into the hands of as many kind of business users as possible, and kind of build that the sales playbook and marketing playbook to kind of have that impact. The initial signs are usually quite exciting. So that's global SaaS. I think on EdTech has been an exciting sector and one of our sweetheart sectors over the years. So really EdTech, we've been seeing a lot of kind of kids learning, a lot of, I guess, recruitment related educational opportunities for adults as well. I think these are kind of coming through, and we've seen a lot of activity in the space. I think here what we'd like to really understand, and our perspective on edtech is usually B2B is a bit of a hard sell for us. I think we find that selling to institutions, selling to like larger organizations tends to really slow the growth cycle. So, edtech, I think we're fairly clear that, B2C is our way, and anything within B2C, which has a very strong product and some initial traction, is of interest for us in the edtech space. Again, keeping in mind the competitive landscape, the larger players that already exist, some within our portfolio, some outside our portfolio, really that kind of skews how competitively and what the CAC looks like for an edtech company. I think user acquisition becomes really important, and really tracking the outcomes for the students and how you can actually measure and iterate on those outcomes would be critical to show through the application on edtech. So over to you, Naman, for the others.
Sure. So I'd like to take the health tech bit first. So health, as per us, been one of the very interesting sector. We have taken 3 positions in the past in the sector, and we expect in 2020 it was a $130 to $150 billion market size, where health tech was just about 2% or less than 2% of it. I think it was just $2 billion in 2020. So we expect it to grow at more than 40 to 50% CAGR till at least for the next 3-5 years. So having said that, we like founders or companies who are cognizant of how the Indian systems are different from abroad, and how insurance penetration is very less, and like only 13% of the people in rural India have access to a primary health center, and the infrastructure is quite broken. So we are definitely cognizant of people who are trying to fix it, but the solution needs modern solutions. So out of that, some of the interesting plays which we like Pristine Care has done for surgeries, we appreciate if someone is solving that vertically for maybe medical tourism, or some platform which can basically do a life cycle management using an active tracking mechanism, at least like Vito is doing, etc. For other diseases other than diabetes. What we also like, what we are very what we look forward to is someone who has the ability to productize the growth, which is super critical, because we have seen a lot of companies in mental health who have had decent traction, but the attention is less. A, because inability to measure the outcomes for the users, and B is definitely productizing the growth is becoming a challenge. So we look for a solution which can be productized for a scale-led distribution. And so having said about health tech, I'll move to fintech, and in fintech too, we believe that digital payments are increasing at a superbly rapid pace, and especially COVID has given it a fillip. And we understand how the MDR or the revenue is decreasing, but we believe that payments has always been a game of volume, and the increase in the volume of payment should definitely counteract for the decrease in revenue which we are seeing. But also we are hoping that the regulations will also be supportive of the revenue structure, which has taken a hit because of UPI introduction, etc. So within fintech, we like specific vertical plays, especially if it's a foreign remittance or if it's a challenger bank. What we like about challenger bank is their ability to blend the banking as a platform, where they don't have the high infrastructure, they don't have physical stores, retail stores, or not as high regulations to comply with versus a traditional bank like HDFC was. So minimum capital adequacy ratio requirements, etc. So a lot of services like insurance and lending could be leveraged, and we at WaterBridge Ventures are not a fan of people who are lending from their own books, where marketplace models are also, which remains equally exciting for us. And challenger banks who can definitely leverage contextual data and offer native UI UX designs are something which we look at, who are capable of unbundling the banks. So other than that, I think, those are some interesting sectors for us in the spaces.
Great.
Over to
Thank
you,
Naman. Back to you again.
Sure. So I'd like to spend some time on what questions you will come across in the applications you have not filled, and just typically I'll orate some of the answers I've seen, some I've liked, and what I'll encourage you to do. So some of the questions is, we are strong believers in founder market fit and the opportunity cost of entrepreneurship. Tell us about why are you passionate about entrepreneurship. So what I would encourage, or what I love seeing, is the most honest replies to this. I've seen various kind of replies like, I was born to be an entrepreneur. I come from an entrepreneur family. My dad was an entrepreneur. My granddad was an entrepreneur. I think, which makes sense. And I think if it runs in the blood, it does. And some very honestly has stated that I had reached glass ceiling in my previous roles, which is also completely fair. We understand that every organization has limited things to offer, etc. So I think candor is something which we expect here, and also sometimes we receive replies like, I saw while I was sorry, I saw an echo. Is there an echo? Because I can hear. Okay. So I also saw replies like, while I was working deeply on a product in my previous organization, I saw white space there, and I thought the space could be revolutionized, etc. So which makes completely sense. And so those are the kind of replies I've received, and I think this is where people have put most of the efforts, and which comes out really well. And in fact, this is the first near to the first reply which we see. So super important to know, as we keep saying, that why are you doing it, why the founder is doing it, and as Nilesh said, there are 100 other things someone can do with their time. So this helps us analyze that. And B is, why are you best suited to crack a problem in this sector market? And I'll take the C point together. What insights from your experience makes you best qualified for this? So here, I think besides the founder market fit, we are also trying to gauge the founder product fit also, because we might see you might have spotted a white space in some of the subsector of this broad sector we have mentioned, but it's very important that you have worked along in the sector before. Like, as I keep mentioning fintech, if someone is trying to build a challenger bank, it's very important to know the challenges which can arise, which is definitely having deep connections in the with the banks, because they need to open up their APIs and they are very rigid in doing that. But someone who has worked along in the industry, as the ecosystem connects, will definitely have an edge over the others. So we are very, we keep looking for those connects and those time or number of experience which has spent in the industry. And definitely best suited the technical capabilities to do this is something which is very critical. B is generally most of the place we see is around consumer acquisition. So digital marketing capabilities also, which we try to gauge, and having experience with the SEOs and the online world of marketing is something which we crucially look upon. So I think those are the set of answers which we are trying to look, and certainly why it will, how sometimes I receive a reply like, I am young, I am, so people who was building for teens, right? And it was young founder around 24, said, I am young, I understand the TG the best, and the other people might be experienced, but I feel I can do a more targeted acquisition around them. So I think all those replies are fair enough. And so yeah, that's about the first part. And second, which we also see with the second question which comes, is tell us about one local and one global competitor that you admire. I think it says at least one, but the more the better for us, and helps us gauge who are we trying to compete from, and also gives us sense on where the inspiration has come from. At least it could be as simple as if someone in a mobility could state Ola as a local competitor and Uber as a global competitor. And a lot of them mentioned that there's no one in the space who is competing with us. But I would encourage to think about different adjacencies where you think could be a potential competitor also. What I've seen in some of the replies is that people mention segregate into direct competitors, indirect competitors, and try to also differentiate how they are different from the others. But all those things are superbly appreciated. And I think that's about the local and global competitor pretty much right out there. And third point is, who is your paying customer? What is your revenue model? Mention core and adjacent revenue opportunity. So who is your paying customer? I think this is where the B2B, B2B2C, and the B2G, or there could be several other customers you are targeting to, but it becomes very important to understand that who ultimately are you going to monetize from. The platform could be a white label solution for a bank, but ultimately you might be taking commissions on every sale or every insurance product sale from the customer, right? And it could be a commission income from customer. However, banks end up paying nothing, or even if the contract is with the bank, maybe CBS is one who is paying for you, right? So I think it becomes really important for us to understand who is the one who will be ultimately writing the check. So a detail on, and it's not necessary that there would already be paying customers. It could be a vision or how you are planning and envisaging on who could become the paying customers. I think this is super critical for us. And revenue model, again, not necessary. You need to state the existing revenue model, and it could be how you foresee it in the future. It could be as a percentage of GMV. It could be ARR basis. It could be license fee. It could be pay per login, etc. But the more detail it is, the more the more beneficial it is for us, for our understanding. And the core and adjacent revenue opportunities are definitely, it could be ad income, or ad income could be the core also, and adjacent revenue opportunities also, affiliate marketing, etc. I would encourage you to think deeply on those grounds, because sometimes the platform becomes garners some millions eyeballs, and a lot of brands, fintech brands, look forward to a platform to do affiliate marketing, etc. So those could be also important source of revenue. So how detailed this section is throws a lot of insights for us. So again, so it could be stating revenue as I'll cover in this point also. Mention 3 most important metrics in your business that you are tracking and show their current scale. So as I mentioned, it could be anything. It could be GMV, it could be EBITDA, it could be revenue. It might not be revenue. I think this is completely fine for us. But what you're tracking, it could be just the number of downloads, or it could be just MAUs or DAUs or the retention, right? I think every metric holds enough relevance, and revenue is not just what we are seeking out here, or the EBITDA multiples or numbers, etc., or the CM1, CM2, etc. So whatever you think are what you're trying to build for the next 6 months, 12 months, and you are gauging your benchmarking your performance on the basis of that metric. Again, I say, be it the monthly active users or the daily active users or the number of downloads that you are trying to achieve. And I think that's super helpful. And when we say current scale, obviously the last month numbers is critical, but if you can show us the journey over 6 months, how it has grown or degrown, or if you can also state a reason why it has degrown or remained flat, I think that is super helpful. So I think that's some of the questions which we have pegged for you for a better understanding, and happy to take, I think, questions at any now.
Okay, thank you so much, Naman. And yes, it's over to any questions that you may have. I already saw one pop up in the chat box about whether we take competing investment bets or not, and I'll take the liberty of going ahead and answering that. I think as a VC, we never say no to any new business opportunity and a pitch profile that comes to us. Having said that, I did mention in my introduction that we don't like to spray and pray or collect logos, and we follow a highly thesis-driven, curated portfolio approach at WaterBridge. So if a business model is very directly competing with any one of our early recent investments, then we would tend to pass it. Having said that, we have taken multiple bets within the same sector. In EdTech, we've made 5 investments. We've exited 1. We do take multiple bets within the same sector, but are directly competing to the business model, we won't. I would nevertheless encourage founders to apply to the program and allow for us to make that decision, given that since we are on these boards and cap tables, we are probably best positioned to understand the intricacies and inner operating models of our portfolio, and would therefore be in a better position to gauge and judge whether you directly compete or not. And trust me, that would reflect in our feedback. If you do directly compete, we typically tend to answer you and state as such in our response that this is too close to one of our existing business models and hence a pass. I hope that answers, and happy to answer any more questions, but yes, the chat box is now open. I think Harsh wants to know what the key metrics that you see at the idea stage. Naman, since you're on unmute, I'll hand that over to you. And we can just take turns. But Naman, the question from Harsh is, what are the key metrics you see at idea stage?
Sure. So I think it's very important what sector are we gauging. But Harsh, at idea stage, I think the founder becomes super important, and maybe our assessment tilts towards more towards the founders. But when we talk about metrics per se, if we specifically talk about, but I think at idea stage, there are no metrics to really track. So I think it ultimately boils down to the founder and the founder market fit and the founder product fit that we keep talking about. And obviously, industry will be very, eyeing towards the industry as to what metrics are being followed. Are we getting good multiples out there? If it's a course-based business in NetTech, what are the general multiples we are seeing? Can it command 30 times revenue multiple like we do see sometimes in SaaS plays, right? So is this, and we will see for industry multiples in the sector you're operating. Does that sector give you good exit? And also how acquisitive or how likely the exit is in that particular sector's idea which you are touching upon. So I think that becomes critical, and definitely then our handle shifts more towards founder.
Great, thank you very much. Nilesh, I'll toss the next one your way. This is from Harshik, who's asking, is it okay if a startup has zero revenue and is at a product testing stage?
Yeah, thanks, Harshit. I think Naman had kind of touched on this earlier, but I'm happy to say that, no revenue is no problem. I think for us, we all understand that in the earlier stages, revenue is kind of one of those things that maybe tends to come later once you have the product built out, once you have the actual market built out. And we totally understand that in the earlier stages, you may not have revenue. I think the way I like to think about this program is it's like a journey of conviction, right? I think over time, what you're trying to do is convince people that, the idea that you have is really something that will fit the market. It's really something that will actually work out and something that, people are willing to pay for and willing to kind of engage with. So, in thinking, you can come in at an idea stage where you have just an idea. You can come in a little bit later where you have an MVP. You can come in when you have a POC, and you can come in when you have actual metrics. I think it would be great to kind of reflect on, what is the best opportunity and what sets you in the best stage to kind of convince. I think it's easiest to say that the more market feedback, the easier it is to kind of get over that hurdle. But I think overarchingly, there's no requirement for revenue. There's no requirement for anything really. You can come with an idea stage company, and if it's really that exciting and the team makes sense, we'll absolutely do it. So I don't think there are any hard and fast rules, but I would encourage you to kind of think about how do you convince a person, and one of the most or a group of people, and one of the most powerful ways to do it is to actually have the market feedback as one of those tools, because people can have opinions all day, but if the market says there's something that the market wants, then everybody will listen.
Thanks. Maybe Nilesh, the next question I could take then, and given that, just doing a quick time check here, any of you have any more questions, please put them in the chat box. We have last few minutes to go and happy to answer anything more. Daniel, thanks for putting this out. I think you're speaking about, please help us with the give and take in conjunction with funding and the range of equity share connection to market, etc. I'm not sure I completely understood the second half with regard to connection to market, but in terms of just the funding, both in terms of the equity percentage as well as the ticket size, As the application mentions, we have bucketed everything into two broad ranges. One is true seed, which is sub 500K, and then up to $1 million, which is 500K to $1 million. We are completely flexible. We understand that this is an application and we're trying to be objective, but when it comes to actually building around, it's not just dependent on us, but it's possibly dependent on who are the other investors participating in the round, how much the founders comfortable diluting at this size and scale, given where the opportunity and market are at. So having said that, I think the best way to answer this is WaterBridge, to state what our position is, which is WaterBridge typically always likes to lead investment rounds. So whether we are cutting a 500K check or $1 million check, we always prefer to come in early. We like to be the first VC on your cap table. We want to lead the round and would typically like for other investors to follow and join us. So therefore, we typically will be comfortable setting the valuation, and that really is as more of an art than a science. It is as subjective as it gets, but we're happy to negotiate, and we're not really putting down fixed equity asks, not even on the application form. We also do insist on ESOP pool, and depending on how large or small, whether it's a single or a multi-member founding team, the range typically goes from I would say 10 to 15%, but that is something that we do always end up asking, and the same is reflected in our term sheet as well. I would encourage you to just head to our FastForward website, where we've put out a draft and a basic high-level term sheet that should give you deeper insights into some of the other conditions that we typically seek at the seed stage. From Harshit again, any tips from WaterBridge for first-time founders building a product in a competitive market? Naman, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So I think it becomes seriously tough, if we see marks like today, if I see a BNPL plays in fintech, like I think I've become a fintech specialist now. So if I see a BNPL play, and the first question which comes in my mind is, how do you compete against a Slice or a Uni or now Postpay at all, right? So, I think there has to be some differentiations which you have to look. It could be from how are you building the product. It could be, the kind of TG you are addressing. Maybe if I talk about BNPL, where someone could be looking at all the prime customers or credit card holders, where you could be focused on, first to credit customers or not prime customers within high underwriting capabilities, right? And what we will assess is, do you have that particular underwriting capabilities to target that set of market which the other players are not penetrating? So the market can definitely be competitive, but I don't think that there is any market where you can't carve out a niche. So niche is some differentiation has to be there, and executions, and we definitely will also be quite curious to see how the execution is going to be bang on and going to be super perfect. So I think this is something.
Thanks, Naman. I think we'll call that a wrap. Teresa, I know you have a question. Please give me a minute to come to that at the very end, but in the interest of time and just being respectful of everyone else, would like to call this a wrap and just draw everyone's attention to the contact us slide. Feel free to reach out to us at fastforward@waterbridge.vc, to follow us on LinkedIn, and head to our website, where we have a very elaborate set of FAQs that should in fact answer many of these questions that you've asked us today. And for those of you who couldn't join us live but are watching this on YouTube later, please feel free to reach out. Once again, follow us on LinkedIn. Fastforward@waterbridge.vc is our email ID for any additional questions or queries. And more than anything else, we look forward to receiving your applications at FastForward 2022. Thank you so much for joining us this Tuesday, and wish you all the best in your founding and building journeys. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Great. Maybe, Naman, I have to give Teresa's question back to you, given you're a resident fintech expert on is solving for microfinance appealing to investors?
So I think yes, superbly appealing for us, and I think there's the impact angle too, uh, uh, and the under penetration angle too. So yes, it's appealing if I have to answer in one line. But what we be mindful of definitely delinquencies, which increases in this particular sector. So how do you track the data points, or do the credit assessment of every individual borrower is something which again gets very critical. And so I think that are the two, three factors. And also, again, finance is always a business of capital, and capital is like any other commodity. You need to source it in the cheaper fashion. So the capability to source the capital in the cheapest fashion is also something which is super important. So I think these three factors combined can be super appealing for investors.
Great. And with that, it's officially a wrap. Thank you so much. I think Teresa has another question, which is the application process has been quite crisp. Thank you so much. And on that note, we'd like to end this AMA. We're planning for another one very soon. So please keep an eye out on our LinkedIn page. But thank you so much, everyone, for attending this one. Take care. Be safe. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.